The Stone Busters Taste Challenge. Couldn't get it right. That's right. This Taste Challenge. No, it's still dark, but the daylight is on the way. I'm trying not to get sick. I'm a little sick because of that monstrously cold classroom last night teaching religion class. Unreal. Like I don't know. I shouldn't be surprised because I taught high school and junior high, but mostly high school for 22 and a half years. And it's so common to run across people that are either incompetent or intractable or usually both. And the lady says, "How's it going?" I said, "Oh, well, the kids are pretty miserable because it's like a walk-in cooler, I mean, that's what it says. It's incredibly cold." And she said, tell them wear a jacket. And then, institutions are really funny because private or public, meaning when we say public, we mean government. Public institution is a euphemism because they don't like to say government. It doesn't sound it's not as sellable, right? Like I went to a government high school. But it is a government high school, local government, because, and then the people say, well, it belongs to everybody. You could test that, like the libertarians, I'm talking about the right-wing libertarians, not the left-wing Marxist-Leninist libertarians, you know what I'm talking about. But the right-wing libertarians will say, test that out if you actually own the school. Because try to walk in at any time and go take something out of the refrigerator and see how much ownership you actually have. Or the White House, if it is really the people's house and it belongs to you. But those are collectivist, socialist, Marxist-Leninist conceptualities, it's our house, in the collectivist sense, not really your house. But private property is theft. All right. Well, anyway, so yeah, it was like freezing cold and my ear was hurting. Just incredible. I mean, it's beyond belief. But these institutions will say, we need money. We have money problems. Well, of course you have money problems. It's 98 degrees outside and you got the air conditioning running at absolute full blast. I told the kids, I said, well, one good thing about this classroom is you could leave meat in here and it wouldn't go bad anytime soon. It would take a long time. So it was just miserable. They wanted to participate and be engaged, but they were just trying to survive, really. Maxwell says, good morning, Ron. Ron, how do your students feel about your hobby on YouTube? I don't think they're aware of it. In high school, some were aware of it. They thought it was funny, or cute or whatever. They don't know about the channel, Maxwell. Okay, they don't watch middle-aged people examine alcoholic beverages on YouTube. I'm pretty sure teenagers are not interested in that. The world at large is not interested in that. I don't guess they would care either way, probably. To clean these glasses. That's strange. Yeah, I would say that they were, even if they knew about it, they might find it comical, or something like that. But I don't think they'd be particularly interested. One of the students wore a Jameson Irish whiskey T-shirt to class last night. I didn't say a word. I mean, it's if it was a Baptist Sunday school class or something like that, you would just go berserk, oh, it's alcohol, get out, you can't wear that, you have to change, that kind of thing. But with alcoholic beverages, Catholics tend to be much more liberal, and they look at it for what it is, a neutral object. It's not like Baptists, like it's evil, or evangelicals, they might say it's evil, it's evil. And then you get the real radical ones. You say, well, you just bring logic in, and their argument starts to break down. You say, well, Jesus turned water into wine. And they say, oh, it wasn't fermented. What? Then you just got to cut off the conversation. You just walk away and say, all right. The whole context of that story lets you know there's obviously wine, not grape juice. Like, oh, well, but it was very cool. We have Rich and Rare. Oh, wait, let's go in the correct chronological order. We have Seagram's VO from 1911. Some Americans have an incredible capacity to tolerate or even relish air conditioning, and it's addiction to air conditioning. That cold, metallic air, and they just grow up with it. It's sort of like these science fiction movies where everybody has to live in this controlled environment. It's like not the boy in the bubble. It's sort of like civilization in a bubble, So I couldn't tell him anything. I just said, well, I said I would do it for 2 more years. I said that to myself. I didn't tell anybody else really. I'll just tolerate it. It's 1 night a week. Under ideal conditions, or let's say better conditions, I'll probably do it longer, but it's just because they do like to learn. They do like to learn. I taught students do want to learn generally. We have a lot of problems with education in America, public and private, more so public. Government education is a shambles generally because of Marxist Leninism, and all the conspiratorial activity and whatnot. But and they can learn. Okay, but anyway, and I was reading about Coach Frost at Nebraska. Kind of goes along with education because he's screaming after the loss to Troy. Troy, the team that they're like the Zulus in Africa. They beat the British in battle, and so Troy beats LSU. They beat Nebraska. There's one of those teams you put on the schedule and you say, oh, we'll beat them. No. And then Nebraska starting off 0-2. Their first game was canceled due to weather. And I love listening to coaches talk. They're like politicians. We have to buy into this. And he tells the players, if you're not going to stick with it, you need to, what is he, something along the lines, if you're not going to ride this out, you need to get off. I say, oh, yeah, he's panicking already, Because if there's anything more, there's really nothing more duplicitous than a coach or a politician. Maybe a coach is worse because, they always tell the players, you have to buy in. You have to be bought in. And they're young, 18 to 20, and they're impressionable, and you said they're adults. I know, but, not. That's why we didn't allow teenagers to vote until the amendment, because they weren't really mentally fit. So, you say, well, they get them to go to wars. They're the ones that fight the wars 17 to 20. I know, because they're the ones with out enough wisdom to realize they're probably making a terrible mistake. You see, they're very impressionable. Okay, SVO, Seagam's VO, and then Rich and Rare. They're both 80 proof, no age statement. The VO is distilled, blended, aged, and bottled in Canada. And the Rich and Rare is distilled, blended, aged in Canada, and bottled in, I think, Louisville, Kentucky, right? By the Sazerac people. Yeah, it says right there, bottled by Sazerac Company, Frankfort, Kentucky. It's interesting here, they're not using one of those alias names. They're just saying Sazerac, not, IWF or whatever these crazy names are. Quality Distillers, Rich and Rare Distilling, they just say Sazerac. He says, okay, thanks for the answer. All right, you're welcome. Now the Rich and Rare says with natural flavors, so it's going to probably taste a little funny, but relative to the VO, but the VO could have natural flavorings added as well. It's just that It doesn't say that on the bottle, because Canadian whiskey can have that up to like, what is it, like 9%, 9 point something percent can be brandy, rum, bourbon, all sorts of wine, generally sherry, but all sorts of wine without disclosure. Now, Sazerac, they tend to be kind of open, and they'll say with natural flavors, or they won't say it, meaning it doesn't have it. So that's kind of nice. They do that as a service or a courtesy. They're not doing it as a requirement. It's not required. It's complicated. Like if you read the Canadian regulations carefully, they do have to disclose it if you write them a letter requesting a certificate or something like that. Yeah, like who's going to do that? You know, like somebody is going to say, I'm writing a letter and I demand a certificate of flavoring or not, something like that. And if you don't tell me, I'm going to talk to the Governor General of Canada. You know, it's one of these regulations that has no real practical application. No one, I mean, a distributor might do it, but the chances of that are almost zero. So it's comical sometimes to read these regulations. But yeah, the coach speak. You have to be bought in. Now, they tell these players all this, you know. But I mean, they got to tell them that. What are they going to do? Tell them the truth? Like, you need to do your best so that it can advance my career. You know, I mean, that doesn't go across so well. You need to sacrifice for my career advancement. You need to be loyal to the program, even though as soon as I get a lot of wins, I'm going to leave Central Florida and, you know, as fast as I can to go to the great Nebraska. Now they're at Nebraska. He's at Nebraska and he's the savior. You know, Scott Frost is here. I'm here to save Nebraska. It's going to be like old times. And then they start off with no wins. So then you see the panic starting to set in. You need to be bought in or you can get out. They said, what do you think? The players are not following your vision, your vision. Oh, no, I wanted to be ahead of it. He said, I wanted to get ahead of it. Oh, man. That is so funny. You say, well, you think the players should get paid. I never said that. They already getting paid in kind with scholarships, right? That's payment in kind. You get it? They don't need cash money because they're getting a scholarship. They can make a career out of their classes. Now, your counter argument might be, well, they don't take any meaningful classes. They just do that to fulfill their obligations so they can play football. Well, that's not the fault of the university. That's their fault. I'm sorry they can't read and write and they're really not qualified for school. I know all that goes on. But in theory, it is payment in kind and they could get a degree. Now, if you hear a lot of the players in interviews, you say that is not a person that could graduate. We all know that. So the whole thing is sort of like a scam, but now if they start paying them, it's even more of a scam. But you say, well, you're just not a good socialist new man. You don't think along the lines of power to the people right on. You're not a vanguard of the revolution. I know I'm not. I know that. Okay. Enough rant and rave. The rant and rave is kind of nice. You get these ideas off your back, you know? You say it's all about the whiskey. It's all about tasting and sniffing and challenging. It is, yes, but if you went out to a lounge or a restaurant, is that what people are doing? They're not talking. They're just, no, they're having conversations. They're talking. They're hanging out. They're interacting. Now, you are like me, probably, where you go out to a bar and you do want to kind of examine the products, you know, like David, the guy with the big beard. We'll go somewhere and then we're like evaluating the beer the whole time. And people might be looking at us like, who are these two like nerd, devotees to beer theory, you know, but we're not doing it to show off. We just do it because that's what our interest is. So I know it probably comes across maybe in a bad way, but what can you do? Everybody has their little eccentric personalities. Well, not everybody, just the eccentric people. You say, yeah, but you might be weird, but when the going gets weird, the weird go pro. That's right. So when the going gets weird, I'm a pro. I'm on my pro level. This already smells like the VO, the rich and rare, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because yeah, it's got alcohol, but it has this candy corn background, which is common with a lot of whiskeys. Doesn't have to be Canadian, but because they're mostly using a corn base, but it has a candy corn background. There's some wood and other things, butterscotch and all, but yeah, it's okay. Let's go over here though. We letting them breathe. I'm talking about college football, classrooms being too cold, intractable administrators who are somewhat aloof to reality, and not to mention indifferent to it. But yeah, you see, now this one here smells a lot more wood, barrel. Okay. Oh yeah, like a used bourbon barrel type thing, which is what the Canadian whiskeys tend to be aged in. Used charred barrel, and they might use those barrels for years. It's not like they're using them once, you know. Now some do. They have this regimentation, like a once used barrel for that particular Canadian whiskey, but then they'll pass the barrel on and they'll use it for something, some maybe a lower shelf items, you know, like rich and rare. This one just smells like the aroma commonly associated with whiskey, if you know what I mean, and wood. Now, I've heard people say, don't use the word beer to describe beer. That is a good practice not to do that. But the US government does that in their regulations. Whiskey should smell and taste like what is commonly associated with whiskey. And I think all people who are reasonable understand that. Even the people that will criticize you understand that. They're just trying to target you, you know, for criticism. Like when my friend David said, let's just taste like beer. Everyone knows what he means. The common lager beer flavor, American adjunct lager flavor, you see, but you'll get the people say, yeah, you're not supposed to use those terminologies. No, you're not feeling good. You're feeling well. Okay. I did good on the test. No, you did well on the test. That's correct. You should say that. But you knew what they meant already. You're just pedant, you see. Now, so already I think this is the VO, and I think that's the rich and rare. I mean, just on aroma only. I'm going to call it on aroma only. This is rich and rare, and this is VO. But just to do it, for the sake of doing it, let's give it a taste. You want to taste over the internet? It'd be like the Jetsons one day where you could taste it over the internet. We should be able to do that by now because this is 2018. And when I was in elementary school, they said by the year 2000, we have flying cars. So something happened with technology. It didn't keep up. You say, well, we got smartphones. Yeah, but they were predicting that in the 1960s, that there would be these little handheld devices where you could go to football games and not watch the game because you could be looking at text messages all game. See what you can do now? You can go out to dinner and not talk to each other because you can look at your phone. See, now that is progress. You got to admit that. Yeah, it has that little sweet, that little flavoring taste. Like John and Nilly said, the almond extract and the other odd things. But this one is not too strong with that. He said, I think he was saying Canadian Hunter was really strong with it. This one tastes okay. It's kind of like a cake frosting type strangeness. You get that. I have said that with Genesee cream ale. It has sort of like a Duncan Hines. Thanks. Classroom. Wear a parka next week. It has sort of a cream cheese, Duncan Hines cream cheese frosting aspect. You think about Genesee cream ale while you're drinking on it. Think on it while you're drinking on it. You'll pick up some of those really weird things about it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, totally not the same. Now, somebody had said, like Danny McFadden, he said, well, I find that Canadian whiskey has something missing with it. All of them. He said all of them. All of them, he said, seem to lack some kind of character. There's something not there. And I agreed with him that there's something, you can't put your finger on it, though. It's just, you know it, but you can't describe it. And I agree with that to an extent, to a large extent. But I don't dislike Canadian whiskey, even though there's that thing. I like them. He said they lack soul. I don't think they lack soul, or it could have been somebody else that said that. It's just something peculiar to them. But these do not, but for somebody to get on the internet and say all Canadian whiskeys taste the same, no, wrong. That is no way. That's impossible, because this does not taste like that at all. This tastes like more straight Kentucky whiskey. You say, oh, he's really cracked up. Yeah, like early times. Now I know that's a bourbon, but legally not a bourbon because of the used barrel. But I mean, in reality, you know, in a practical sense, it is. No, this does not have the heavy char of bourbon. No. But it has the wood. It has the corn. And it has a lot of rye. Now, you think of a high rye bourbon. This one has characteristics similar to like a Redemption rye, which is only aged 1 year. That one's kind of pitiful for a $20 bottle. You start thinking about value. I think you're getting much more value with Seagram's VO than you're getting with Redemption rye, high rye. It's just my opinion. Okay, so I would recommend both of these, okay? If you can get Rich and Rare for $7.42 like I can get at Walmart, it might be $7.49. I think one of them is 7 cents more than the other. I think Rich and Rare is $7.49 and the Canadian Limited is $7.42. But yes, I would recommend it. But the VO is better. It's just got more character. It's got more of the wood and traditional whiskey. In other words, it doesn't need the flavorings. Well, it may have them, but they're not so overt because it can stand on its own. But I mean, come on, it's been around since 1911. It's got a whole history behind it. You say, well, I find VO's a little dull. It's not super flavorful. No, it isn't, but it does have a lot of subtle character. And if you keep drinking on VO, you'll pick that up. If you're in a big rush, if your goal in life with drinking whiskey is to position yourself and make a statement so everybody else can look at you and be impressed, now VO is not going to work. But if you're willing to slow down, not be in a big rush, think on it while you drink on it or sip on it, then you can detect a lot of intricate characteristics. A lot of people are not willing to do that. Everything's a rush. I got to rush through everything. Okay. So let's say VO. I'm going to look. SVO. Remember the Mustang SVO? Ford Mustang SVO. Special Vehicle Operations. That was a very expensive car. The Mustang SVO. That was back in the mid 80s when they were really trying to get into turbo technology, and it didn't really work out too well because what happened was the standard horsepower, rear wheel drive horsepower with the fuel efficiency came into play so much that they didn't need to do 4-cylinder supercharge, you know, and turbocharging. But, you know, at the time, 1979, 80, 81, they had the CAFE standards, the really strict gasoline, you know, miles per gallon standard. And the old V8, inefficient V8 could never comply with that. So they were trying all kind of tricks, you know, with crossfire injection and over there at Chevrolet and Pontiac, and then turbo. But now you got 700 horsepower Hellfire, Hellcat, you know, Dodge Challenger Hellcat, because the American technology, right? They developed super high output V8 engines with incredible fuel efficiency. So then Why you didn't need the turbo, but that's SVO, special vehicle operations. But anyway, but in the case of whiskey, it's Seagram's VO. And what does VO stand for? We don't know. They've never revealed it. You say, I know, it's some secret Kabbalah message. It's numerology. It's V is the whatever letter in the alphabet and O in it. You put them together and it stands for the New World Order. And all right, it might, but probably just means very old or very own, their very own special brand. It's probably not very old, so it doesn't really stand for that. I don't think Seagram's VO's aged a whole long time, but we don't know. It's a secret. You say, see, it's a secret. But you don't understand because you weren't tapped. You weren't tapped to learn the secret doctrine. That's true, I was not. I'm just tasting the whiskey. Oh, well. Seagram's wins because it's better. But Rich and Rare is good. It's good. Not great. Good. Or even maybe we could say serviceable. But there was, you saw it, you watched it, even with all the other discussions and the blah, blah, blah. You saw that very clearly. I was able to detect that it was VO on aroma only. Now, that's important when you can pick it up on aroma only. And look at those American blended whiskeys. I was so befuddled and confused. I couldn't. T.W. Samuels had me twisted around, sideways, upways, downways. I couldn't figure it out. But with the Canadian whiskeys, I think you can sometimes catch it a little better. Bucky Dent said, what's up? Just chilling, drinking a bud. So what's next in line? Well, we're going to do Rich and Rare, and we're going to put it up against Seagram's VO Gold, the 8-year age. That does have an age statement. It's no longer produced, but there's an incredible backstock at the Jefferson Parish, Louisiana warehouse. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon. It's just sitting there in those bottles waiting to go on the shelf. So, and there could be some aging still in Canada. But it is officially discontinued. I don't think you'll see any more of it. You know, eventually it'll dissipate, be gone, be sold off. After the VO Gold, which will be no kind of challenge, I'm sure. Then we're going to go up against Royal Canadian. I think that's what's coming third, Royal Canadian since 1934. Another Sazerac brand, which doesn't say with natural flavors on it, so I would assume it's not with natural flavors. And then we'll do Canadian Limited or Albertson's Canadian Blended Whiskey. That's store brand, Sazerac. Then Canadian Limited, that's Sazerac. Oh, yeah. And then Canadian Club, which is Jim Beam Suntory, And then the Canadian Club 12-year, that you know that won't be any kind of challenge. Canadian Club could be because it's got the flavor. You can tell Canadian Club has flavorings. It's got that strange almond, I say beeswax, like a beeswax flavor. But could be a challenge. And then it'd be back to blended Scotch whiskey, but that could be 3 weeks. We got so many Canadian whiskeys we got to get through, people. You know I don't feel like sitting here sipping on whiskey at 6 a.m. You know I don't want to do that. You say you're doing it for us, though, huh? Yeah. I mean, I look at that. Both of them are gone. Well, you cannot judge me. Okay, well, so anyway, there's daylight coming. And the heat, oh my golly, gee whiz, golly, all of that. The heat, it was 98 degrees yesterday. Can you imagine that in September? 98 degrees broke a record, a Louisiana record. Oh, global warming. I blame. Let's see, who do I blame for this global? Oh, for the heat, I blame the patriarchy. I blame the patriarchy for the heat, and I want reparations for the heat. I demand reparations for the heat. I demand it. Thanks for watching this video production.